Hello, my name is Rickard, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to recreate the Mauritanian poster in Photoshop. If you'd like to follow along, go ahead and in the description of this video I have included a link to all the assets that I use. Alright, so pause the video, download those, and then let's get started. So the first thing I want to do is just take a look at the original poster. We have this kind of American flag pattern. We've got stars. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these bars. You can see the whole thing has kind of a blue gradient map to it. And then we have here where the red almost looks like blood spreading across his face. And then we've got our movie characters and our title, and all this is done on kind of a grungy concrete background. So this is what we're going to duplicate. Obviously we're going to use our own images, so it won't turn out exactly the same, but you should get a good idea of how to create this kind of effect. Alright, so to start, we're going to create a new document. And let's just go to photo here, kind of show you everything. I'm going to go here. So let's go Mauritanian poster. I want to change this to pixels, and I want to make it 2000 pixels by 3000 pixels. And I want to change the resolution to 72. Everything else I'm going to leave on the default, so let's hit create. And then here let's pull in our concrete background. So in the assets you're going to see two concretes. Let's pull in number 14, and then we're just going to make this bigger. And I'm holding down options so it's scaling from the center, and that looks good. Next we're going to add a white gradient, and this will come from the bottom. So let's change our tool to gradient. Hit D on the keyboard. That's going to default our colors to black and white. And then I'm going to hit X to switch this so that my foreground color is white. I'm going to go into the linear gradient, go under basic, select the second one here, which is foreground color to transparent, and then put this on linear gradient. Now the reason this is important is with a foreground to transparent gradient, when I make a second gradient, it's actually multiplying or adding it on top of my existing one. Whereas if I didn't have that, every time I made a gradient, it's making it's replacing everything that exists. So it's important that you make sure this is on the right setting there. And let's go ahead and delete that. Okay, so starting from the bottom, I'm going to hold down Shift, go about halfway up. Holding down Shift is just going to keep it straight, and then we can turn this down a little bit, maybe to 50%. Okay, then I'm going to do a similar thing, but this is going to be a black gradient. And this one, so if we just hit X, that's going to change our color. This one, I'm going to start a little bit lower than center, and then just go down to about there. And then we're going to take the opacity down on that as well. Let's take to around, let's say 70%. Now, next, I'm going to create my flag pattern. So to do that, the first thing I want to do is do a new guide layout. And for our guide layout, we're going to do 11 columns. We're going to do 2 rows. And then for the margin, our top margin is going to be 170 pixels. Our left margin is going to be 135. Our bottom is going to be 360. And then our right is going to be 135 as well. So let's hit OK. And these blocks here represent where we're going to do our black. So let's make a new layer. And this is kind of a temporary layer, meaning I'm just using it for now to create a mask, but I'll throw it away afterwards. So we'll just call this temp. Okay, so make sure under view that you have snap turned on. That's going to make sure it snaps to the guides. And what I'm going to do is just start kind of at this corner here and then go down to the bottom there. And you can see here, this should have snapped to the guides. It almost did. It's 1 pixel too far. If I go right mouse click, transform selection, I can just line this up perfectly there. I want to make sure I hold down shift. And as you can see, that guide isn't on a pixel, which is why it's not landing exactly. But that's certainly close enough. Let's fill this with black. So to fill, I can go down to Edit, Fill, Foreground Color, hit OK. All right, then I'm going to drop my selection with Command D, and then go onto my Move tool, hold down Option, and then drag this here, here. And I'm just repeating this. As I'm holding down Option, it's going to make a copy. And I'm just using my guides here to show me where to put this. So that's where I want those. And then we can just hold down Shift, select all these layers, and then do Command E to put them all together. We can call this bands. Next, I want to add the stars here. So I'm going to go to my, let's go here. I don't need you. Okay, and we're going to go to the polygonal tool. And then up here on the top left, you're going to see we have a little drop down. We actually have one called 5-point white star. I'm going to select that. And that's going to allow me to make a star shape like this. Now there are a few settings that I want to adjust. So let's do Command Z to get out of that. And the first one is here with the little gear. The star ratio is 50. I want to change this to 48%. And I want to make sure this is on shape, which it is. I want to change the color to black. And then I'm just going to hold down Shift as I do this and make this like that. And then we'll just center this up with this. Maybe make it just a touch smaller, about there. So that looks quite good. Maybe bump it up just a couple. So something like that. We can call this star. We're going to do the same thing that we did with the bands. Just hold down Option and then make a copy of this. We're going to want to place it right in the middle of this there. And as I add more, you can see my smart guides are showing me where I should put it. So that's very helpful there. And there you go. And then I'm going to take all the way from here all the way down to bands and do Command E again with all those layers selected. And we'll call this Star Spangled Banner. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is basically use this to create some mask. So I'm going to hold down Command, click on it. That's going to select a transparency from the layer. And then with my black gradient selected, I'm going to add a mask. And there you can see we've now added that mask. If I do Command semicolon to turn off the guides, you can see what that looks like. And we're going to use this again. So I'll keep it in my file. Okay, having done all that, the next thing we're going to do is go to File, Open, and I'm going to open this, which is our kind of character here. And we're going to cut him out of this background. So let's go to our quick selection tool, click on Select Subject, and then go to Select and Mask. You can see that's done a really good job. The one place where I'd want to clean up is maybe here. So let's go onto our Refine Edge, make our brush a bit bigger, and just paint right in this area here. Just going to take the opacity down here so I can see what I'm missing. So looks like this as well. We want to make sure we have covered this here as well. And you can see there's a few spots where the skin isn't totally selected. You can just go in and clean that up. Basically what we're doing here is just cleaning up our selection, trying to get as much of him in our selection and as much of the background out of our selection as possible. This is kind of a graphic image, So having a little bit of rough edges like here and stuff isn't really gonna create a problem. All right, so let's turn on edge detection to 3 pixel, hit OK. I'm gonna add a mask to this. And then we can convert this to a smart object. We'll call this man, and let's drag him in here. And here I'm going to turn my guides on just because they're going to help me place this. I basically want his head just a little bit off of this middle line. That's where our title is going to be. I'm going to do Command T for transform, hold down Option, and drag my anchor point to up here. And then holding Option, I can just scale this down to where I want it. I want his bottom shoulder kind of right there. And let's see here. So this is going to be red. So kind of want this moved a little bit to about there. And I think that looks pretty darn good. So let's hit OK here. And then I want to make some adjustments to this. So first off, I really want the bottom of him to be significantly darker. So let's add a new layer. We're going to call this darkening, and we're going to clip it to this layer. And what that means is anything I add to this layer is going to be basically the transparency of the layer that it's clipped to will determine the transparency layer of this. So let's do that darkening. I'm going to go on my gradient tool with G, and then using just a linear gradient, I'm going to kind of come up from the bottom toward his face like that. And that's just going to add this nice darkness down here. Maybe take that down just a little so we have a little bit of the original texture showing through. And then one more time, I'm going to make a copy of my man layer like this. And what I want to do here is put it on multiply and do Command M, which is going to bring up my curve. And I want to make this significantly darker. Maybe something like that. And I want this to only be affecting the bottom, meaning not his face. So I'm going to add a mask to that, go back on gradient, and with a black gradient, just paint out his face. So maybe something like this. And then also on this man layer here, I'm going to add a curve and just make it a little bit darker. So Command M to add that curve. Maybe make his face a little bit brighter and the rest a little bit darker. Really want to get this neck to be darker, so let's see if we can't do that. And I may even go on the darkening layer and use just a soft brush. Maybe set my flow to 30. And just kind of paint out his neck area there. I really just want that face and most of the rest to be in darkness like this. And then also what I might do is on this man, just go into the smart object here and go to camera raw. And what I want to do is just pull in a little bit of the highlights here. Add a little bit of contrast, a little bit of more darkness to the shadows, and then add some clarity to get a little more texture into his face. Just like that, and then hit OK. All right, let's close that, save. And that's really getting toward the look that I want. Okay, so next what we're going to do is go to the very top of the layer stack, and I'm just going to add a black and white. And here what I want to do is maybe just adjust the red so that his face is a little bit brighter, like that. And then the other thing I want to do here is I want to take my original Nucly concrete layer, hold down Option, drag it to the top here, and put this on overlay. And what that's going to do is it's just going to pump up that texture a little bit on top of everything. I can take the opacity down, but that's just going to add that extra layer of texture. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the guides with Command semicolon. And the next thing I'm going to do is add the blue color. And we're going to do that with the channel mixer. Not very often used tool here. And we're going to go to the blue channel, and we're going to take our blue and we're going to take that down to 30. And what that's going to do is it's going to add this yellow to the image, because everywhere that there was blue, we're basically taking the blue out. But what we're going to do is we're going to counteract that with 45 here. And what that's going to do is it's going to push that back out, but also add blue to kind of the bottom of the curve. So as you can see here, we're getting that look that we want. It's giving us that blue and so forth. Next thing we're going to do, let's go ahead and close this, and we call this blue. All right, the next thing we're going to do is add the red gradient, and that's going to be all outside of where this blue is. So if I hold down Command, click on my Star Spangled Banner, go to Select Inverse, I now have everything selected. I can go here to Gradient Map. And for the gradient map, I want it to go from black, then to right in the middle, a dark red. And for the dark red, I'm going to use AE0000. And then for the white here, we're going to use just a pure red. So top corner of the red there, and then hit OK. And there you can see it's creating that effect that I want, where it's pushing red into all these other areas, but also keeping our black. So let's hit OK. And what I want to do is I want to add a second mask for him, but I don't want to do it on this mask. So I kind of want to double mask the layer. And I'm going to show you a quick trick on how to do that. Let's go ahead and move this properties out of the way. But to do that, I can put it into a folder. So Command G. And then I can simply add a mask to the folder. And in this case, what I want to do is hold down Command, click on the man layers to select his transparency, and then hold down Option and click on the group mask. So there you can see I've now cut him out of the mask. The next thing we want to do is take the drips here and basically paint this effect of drips coming down his face. Now for that, what I'm going to do is use the pen tool. So let's go ahead and select our pen tool, and we're going to make it, let's start with this one. And basically I want this coming down in streaks across his face all the way down to about here. If you want, you can like look at the original, but I think we can just kind of eyeball this. I want to add anchor points where it's kind of interacting with his face. That'll just create a more realistic effect. So maybe something like this, and then we go back up. We go somewhere here, go down. We're going to have a long one that kind of goes all the way to his necklace here. And then maybe this one goes to here like that. And let's go back up to here. So I think that, oops, let's make sure it covers everything here. The nice thing about using a path is I can always go click on anchor points and adjust them afterwards. But I want this to look about like that. Let's maybe just adjust this a little bit. You just kind of want a somewhat organic shape of what it would look like if this kind of ran down almost as like a blood pouring look. I think would look kind of poignant in this poster image, so something like that. And I want this to look kind of like it's interacting with his eye, like it's dipping in there and then continuing to flow out. So I think that looks really good. Next, we're going to add, I want to make sure when I start making the other one that this one is selected. So it's adding it to the same path layer. And what we'll do here is a similar thing. We'll make it kind of go into his mouth here and then kind of go down here and then join up again here. Maybe have this one spread out to 2 as well, like this. And then we'll go back up, do a similar thing, like so. And then for this last one here, thinking we'll have it run down the backside like this. Maybe go right to where his ear is, kind of go behind it. And then we'll do a second one that kind of runs behind his ear here, all the way back down to there. And we'll have this one meet. Okay, so that I think is going to look good. Let's go ahead and go onto our path select. Select all 3 paths and we're going to do make selection. We can put this on 0, hit OK. And then on our group mask here, we're going to fill our selection with white. And a shortcut for that is Option Delete. So that'll fill your selection with your foreground color. And there you can see we have that pretty cool effect of it running down his face. Now having done this, I think I may want to just add a little more contrast, push this light and dark a little bit more in this image. So I'm going to go to right below my blue channel layer and just go to curves here and just maybe push up the lights a little bit like this and push down the darks just a little bit. Okay, next what I want to do is add a little bit more grunge on top of everything. So I'm going to go to File, Place Embedded, and we're actually going to use a separate concrete layer, and that's going to be Concrete 37. So let's go ahead and place that. Just going to turn it in like this, make it bigger, and then hit OK. Now, there's a few ways I could do this, but with strong colors, something like overlay, it just doesn't add any lightness to the red, because red is such a pure color, but it visually appears as dark. So what we need to do is use a combination of multiply and screen. But the problem with this is there's way too much information. So what we're going to do is put this one on multiply, and we're going to add, let's put it on normal so you can see what I'm doing. But basically I want to reduce this to just the pure black lines. So I'm going to go Command M to bring up my curve, and I want to push this almost all the way to white. So we just have this black information in here, and then we're going to hit OK and put this on multiply. So there you can see it's now adding this nice black grunge to our image. We may want to take that curve down back just a little bit so we have a little more information there, and it's not quite as contrasty, but something like this. And we can always take the opacity down a little bit too, maybe to 60. And then we're going to copy this, Command J. We're going to put this on screen, and we're basically going to do the opposite. Rather than making a curve, let's put it on normal for a second, but rather than making a curve that reduces everything to just the darkest parts, we're going to do a curve that reduces everything to the lightest parts. So to reset my curve, I'm going to hold down Option. You'll notice my cancel button becomes a reset button. I can reset there, and I want to push this until we just have a few highlights like this. So just a few dots. Even this might be a bit too much. And let's put this on screen. You're going to see that kind of adds that nice detail that you wouldn't otherwise get because these colors are so strong. So there you go. And then finally, I want to add a heavy noise layer on top of all this. So let's add one more layer. But actually, instead of adding it through here, I'm going to go to Layer, New, and you'll see why in a sec. We're going to call this Noise, and I'm going to change it to Overlay, and then you'll see I have this nice option here, Fill with Overlay Neutral Color. So I'm going to hit OK. I now have it ready. I can go to Filter, Noise, Add Noise. I want to make sure this is on Gaussian, monochromatic. Let's make it a really big number, like 50. And then if we zoom in, you can see it's a little too strong. So if we just go to Filter, Blur, and then maybe do that one more time. That's good. And then we can take the opacity down to, let's see, so that's 0, I think probably around 35. Looks good. Okay, then the last thing I want to do is I'm just going to put in one title real quick so we can see the basics of titling here. For that, I'm going to turn the guides back on, and I'm going to go to the type tool, which is T. It's the shortcut. For this, I'm using Serra Extra Condensed, so we're going to select that, semi-bold, 226 point. I want it to be left aligned, and if I click on this, I can bring up my character palette. I want the tracking to be 205. So we're going to start the letters here, Mauritanian. So let's go ahead. We're going to make it all caps, Mauritanian. And let's go ahead and put this on the M here. I actually want it to be bigger. I want it to go all the way to the end here. So let's go ahead. I'm going to select all, and with Shift Command and then the period button, I can actually make this bigger interactively. I think something around there looks good. And then if I want to adjust the tracking, I can hold down Option with my text selected, do left and right arrow keys. So, but I think that looks good right there. And then what I'm going to do is hold down Option, drag this up, select, type in the, and I want this the to be quite a bit smaller, so it'll be right around there. And I'm just going to do a transform. It's kind of the easy way to do this, and just bring this down. I want the kind of the H and the E to be centered between those color shift there, so something like that. And if we do Command 0, turn off our guides, you can see we've pretty much duplicated that effect and have a pretty nice, cool looking effect on this poster. So there you have it. That's how you recreate the Mauritanian poster in Photoshop. Hopefully you learned some tips, tricks, and techniques that you can use in your own artwork in the course of this tutorial. And if you enjoyed it, please subscribe to my channel, leave a like, leave a comment, share this video. All of it helps. Otherwise, here's some other videos you can check out. And I'll see you next time.